First, I'm gonna make sure that all lights are clean and functional. They're not cracked or broken or missing. Now, my clearance lights on my tractor and my trailer must be amber in color. Now, my turn signals are amber. And my four-wheel flashers are also amber in color. And my headlights. Make sure my high and my low beams are functioning properly. Make sure they're clean and clear. Now, I'm gonna open the hood by releasing the safety latch. And then I will put a foot on the bumper and two hands on the hood. Then I'm gonna move on the right side of the vehicle. Checking my fuel area first. Now, first, checking this on my header board. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. Then I'm checking on my frame. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken on frame or cross members. So anything across is considered cross member. Then, number two, I will check my exhaust. Make sure it's not damaged. There's no signs of leaks like rust or soot. Make sure it's connected tightly and it's also properly mounted and secure. Then, move into my drive shaft. Make sure my drive shaft it's not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure. Now my U-joints are properly mounted and secure and free of foreign objects. Then I'm gonna check on my catwalk and my steps. Make sure they're solid, clear of objects, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken. Next, I'm gonna check on my fuel tank. Make sure my fuel tank is properly mounted and secure. Make sure my fuel caps are tight and there is no leaks coming from the fuel tank, fuel caps, or fuel lines. Next, I'm gonna check on my door. Make sure my door opens and closes properly and it's not damaged. Door hinges are properly mounted and secure. And the door seals and window seals are intact, not damaged. Next, checking on my mirror and my mirror brackets. Make sure they're properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no loose fittings. Then, checking on my windows. Make sure all my windows are clean, not damaged, and work properly. Now, inspection I did on this side of the vehicle also applies to the other side. Next, I'm checking on my engine compartment, starting with my alternator. It's located right here. Must be properly mounted and secure. I'll make sure that all wires are securely fastened and it's belt driven. Now I'm checking the belt, not cracked or frayed, less than 3/4 of an inch of play. My water pump, it's right here, must be properly mounted and secure, not leaking. It's also belt driven. Now I'm checking the belt, not cracked or frayed, less than 3/4 of an inch of play. Next, checking on my coolant level. Coolant level must be filled to proper level by checking it through the side glass or through the radiator cap. Next, checking on hoses and leaks. I'm looking on the ground for different fluids coming from the transmission or the engine, and then listen for any air leaks. Then I will check all hoses on the engine compartment. Make sure they are well attached on both ends, and there's no abrasions, no bulges, no cuts, no leaks. Next, checking on my air compressor, which is located right here. Must be properly mounted and secure, not leaking oil or air like this one. And the air compressor is gear driven. Next, checking on my power steering fluid level. Must be above the fill mark in the normal operating range. And this is also gear driven. The dipstick is located on the cap. Not leaking, properly mounted and secure. Next, I will check on my oil dipstick. Make sure it's filled to proper level, above the fill mark in the normal operating range. And I will check it with the engine off. Next, I will check on my steering box and my hoses. Make sure they're properly mounted and secure. They're not cracked or broken. And no loose or missing nuts or bolts. Then I will check on my steering linkage, which consists in 4 components. First component is my steering column. Second is my pitman arm. Third is my drag link. 4 is my tie rod. Tie rod, drag link, pitman arm, steering column are not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure. Now checking my U-joints and my sockets, make sure they're not worn or loose and they're not missing any nuts or bolts. Then I will check on my front suspension, starting with the spring mounts. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Properly mounted and secure. No missing hardware. Then I'll check my springs. Make sure the springs are not cracked, bent, or broken. Properly mounted and secure. Or no more than a quarter missing or broken. Next, I will check on my U-bolts. Make sure they're properly mounted and secure. Not cracked, bent, or broken. No missing any hardware. Now, my shocks must be properly mounted and secure. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Not leaking. Now, the inspection I did on this side of the vehicle on my front suspension also applies to the other side of the vehicle. Next, checking on my front brakes, starting with the brake chamber. Make sure it's not leaking. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's properly mounted and secure, and no loose or missing clamps. Then, checking on my slack adjuster. Make sure it is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's not missing any hardware. Then, checking on my push rod. Make sure my push rod is not cracked, bent, or broken, and should not move more than 1 inch when pulled by hand. Then I'm checking on my brake hoses and lines. These are my brake hoses, these are my brake lines right here. Okay, make sure there's no abrasions, no bulges, no cuts, no leaks, and they are well attached at both ends. Next, checking on my drums and linings. Drums, linings, not cracked and no broken, no loose or missing hardware, no oil or grease. Now the lining should be at least 1/4 of an inch thick. Now this inspection done on the front brakes on this side of the vehicle also applies to the other side. Now I'm going to check on my front axle. Now my tire depth on my front axle must be 432 seconds of an inch minimum. On fronts, no recaps. Now the condition must be evenly worn. There's no abrasions, no bulges, no cuts to tread or to the sidewalls. Then I will check on my valve cap and stem. Make sure it's not missing or damaged. Now the inflation, I will check it with the tire gauge. Then I will check on my rims. Make sure the rims are not cracked or broken or loose. No welding repairs, no rust. Now, checking on my lug nuts. Make sure they're all present. They are not cracked or distorted. There is no signs of looseness such as rust or shiny threads. Now, I'm going to check on my hot oil seal and my axle grease seal, see if it's not leaking any oil or grease. Now, if wheel has a side glass, make sure the oil level is adequate. Now, this inspection on the front axle also applies to the other side of the vehicle. Then, I'm checking on my coupling system on tractor and trailer. Checking on my airlines, the blue and the red. Make sure there's no leaks, no abrasions, no bulges, no cuts. Well attached to both tractor and the trailer ends. Now I'm also checking my glove hands. Make sure they're locked in place and they're free of any damage. Now I'm going to check on my electric line, which is the green one. Make sure it's not cracked. Make sure it's well insulated and it's securely connected on tractor and on the trailer. Now we're going to move to a different truck so you can see. So follow me. Bring your stuff. Don't leave your stuff in. Checking on my fifth wheel skid plate. I'll make sure it's properly lubricated and it's well attached to the platform. No missing bolts or pins. Now I'm checking my platform. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. Properly mounted and secure. Now I'm going to check on my mounting bolts. Make sure they're not damaged, loose, or missing hardware. Properly mounted and secure. Next, I'm going to check on my release arm and my safety latch. Make sure my release arm is in engaged position and my safety latch is in place. Next, checking on my locking jar, which is right here. It's right here. Make sure it's fully closed, holding the kingpin in place, not damaged. Now the kingpin goes right here. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. The apron of the trailer's right here. Not cracked, bent, or broken. And gap. No gap between fifth wheel and the apron. I'll show you the apron and the kingpin. So this is the kingpin right here. This is where the locking jaw is going to go around. Okay, make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. The apron on the trailer, this whole plate right here is called the apron. Not cracked, bent, or broken. And gap, no gap between fifth wheel and the apron. Got it? Okay. Now, I'm just going to explain the difference between the front and the rear. Now, the rear and the trailer, there's no difference as far as the suspension brakes. Well, the suspension, you minus the airbags and shocks on the trailer. There's no airbags and shocks. But right here, the difference between the front axle and the rear axle is the tire depth. It's 232 seconds of an inch on the rear, and recaps are okay. Okay. Now, these are dualies. You mentioned the spacing, evenly separated with no debris in between. And then on the suspension, you're gonna add the airbags and the torque arm on the suspension. So how do you describe the airbags? Properly mounted and secure. It's rubber. What is it?
Cuts and bolts. Properly mounted and
Secure.
Secure.
No abrasions,
bulges and cuts.
Okay, no leaks. All right.
No leaks.
Now this is metal. How do you describe this one?
PMS properly mounted and secure,
And what else?
and no cracked, bent, or broken.
Not cracked, bent, or broken. That's it. Not cracked, bent, broken. Properly mounted and secure. So that's the suspension. Now on the brakes, the only thing is different is the push rod. Okay, it's 2 inches when pulled by hand on rear or trailer. It's very simple. So if you know the front, you know the rest. Okay, now that's applies on both sides also. Now the rear of the truck, splash guards properly mounted and secure, not missing or damaged. Properly mounted and secure. Now the lights, reflector tape, clean and functional. Not cracked, broken, or missing. The reverse is white. The turn signals red. The brake light's red, tail light's red, and four-wheel flash is also red. So basically what we just did is A and B. Now C will be the trailer, okay? All right, so we're gonna finish right here. We're gonna go and do